I show you guys MSNBC and CNN. You guys see Fox News every single day. I'm showing you all the big channels are doing this nonstop every single day. Now this is about 3-4 days old. So I'm gonna just let's just dive into it. I'm gonna give you a reaction. I just remember seeing this guy. I was like, oh my god, how do they find this psychopath? This guy, watch this guy's performance on the big stage, CNN. He probably been waiting for his entire life.
Last year, when the Kremlin shut down his office. Alex is following China's relations with Russia and Europe closely, and he joins me now from Berlin. Alex, it's great to see you, my friend. A lot to talk about here, a lot of focus
He's following the situation in Russia and China. I mean, he's here to do propaganda. He's here to twist and spin the situation by the
what's transpiring in the meetings taking place, the high-level meetings in China, we should say. Let's start with French President Macron and his attempt to put more pressure on President Xi to get Vladimir Putin to end the war in Ukraine. Here's what Macron said to Xi that he was counting on him for. He said to bring Russia back to reason and everyone back to the negotiating table on Ukraine. Now, Alex, we have been here before. President Macron tried to play the diplomatic leader here with regards to Vladimir Putin, whether it was on phone calls or in.
And then Macron came back and made a statement that blamed the United States and the EU for not seeking to resolve the Ukraine crisis.
Is he really playing? Do you think he's pretending? Because I mean, he did push through or try to push through the pension reform in order to pay this money out to NATO.
Oh, guys, so do you think Macron is not a good guy,
or do you think he's serious?
Yeah, don't get twisted. You guys know, based on our coverage, Macron is not a good guy at all. There's only political. He's definitely playing both sides, but he's definitely rebuking the United States more than used to seeing French, German, UK leaders are used to doing. But he's playing both sides at the same time. You don't want to get 100% crucified, but the fact that he's even making statements about saying strategic autonomy is big. But now look at how they present this segment, which is my larger point. They're gonna admit that, CJ. They're gonna admit those quotes and statements that I pulled up for you guys. But let's continue. Okay, we get started.
In Moscow in the months leading up to the war. That didn't result in anything promising. The war continued. There are a lot of people who are viewing this meeting with the same sense of pessimism. Are you one of those people?
I'm pretty pessimistic on the ability of President Macron to turn China's support for Russia. And at the same time, I think that China believes that it doesn't have enough leverage to bring Putin to a negotiation table if his tunnel vision is really to destroy Ukraine. And at the same time, China doesn't have interest to stop this war and bring Russia.
China does not have interest to stop this war. The only side that's been trying to mediate peace versus Biden and Boris Johnson in the UK have openly stopped peace negotiations. But according to this guy, China has no interest in ending this war, even though they proposed a peace proposal that Lula endorsed. Meanwhile, Joe Biden in the West is deeply unserious. But I'm gonna let it continue because honestly, this guy shit speak for itself. I'm gonna let it continue.
To the negotiation table and deliver peace on Ukrainian terms.
That's interesting because a lot of people would say that, oh, China and President Xi just has to snap his fingers and Russia will do whatever he is telling him to do. You're saying that he does not have the leverage that many think that he has over Vladimir Putin to end this war. Why?
His leverage is definitely growing. China now accounts for 30% of Russian exports, 40% of Russian imports, including high-tech goods like chips, are coming from China, and all of the trade increasingly is cleared through Chinese yuan, the Chinese currency. But at the same time, China is fully aware that Russia's dependency on Europe was much bigger before the war started. And needless to say, it was even bigger in 2014 when Russia decided to annex Crimea. And then Putin is so fixated on Ukraine, he believes that bringing Ukraine to its knees and dominating in Ukraine is something that will define his legacy.
Dude, the Chinese peace proposal that Putin endorsed called for both sides to respect territorial sovereignty, which means, yes, the Donbass and eastern Ukraine become independent, which is a win for Russia. But that also means that Zelensky's Ukraine remains. That's what China's peace proposal is saying. But the West is freaking out. They're like, oh my God, we can't have Ukraine lose any land. Not great for the West, but this is how you create peace, because the people in the eastern Ukraine, the people in the Donbass, they do not want to be part of Ukraine, which led to the civil war in 2015. So this is the obvious this is the obvious peace proposal that makes sense. Everyone concedes a little bit.
I don't know if it's connected, but this guy is from a thing called Carnegie Center, and you know who else is from a organization starting with Carnegie? Matt Duss. Carnegie Endowment. Carnegie Endowment Center.
Hey, chat,
yeah, I'm not saying they're the same, but there's a Carnegie Endowment or something like that center, and that's the United States. But if you notice in the name tag on CNN here, it'll have his name, director, and it's Carnegie Eurasia something center. So it's like, so maybe it has a slightly different
I gotta
name.
look into that. I gotta look into that. Oh man, there got to be a connection there, because this guy just getting warmed up. When you listen to Matt Duss is an unhinged neocon. This guy is about as bad as Matt Duss. And not only MSNBC, it's CNN, everybody. That's why I'm showing you guys different sources. Everyone from Washington Post, New York Times, CNN, MSNBC. Tucker Carlson freaking out every damn night. Like the all the big Fox hosts, they do insane China segments every night. And when I see it, I think it's amusing, because I see panic. I see fear in their eyes when they do these segments. JB, feel free to interrupt anytime. I was just doing a presentation here. You guys know how it goes. But I'm gonna let the video continue, and then we got the guy just warming up, by the way. So if he is connected in Matt Duss anyway, I need to look into that, because that is extremely interesting. But let's continue.
No matter how much leverage and influence Xi Jinping has over Putin, he doesn't really have the power to push him from this boss.
I want to play for our viewers how President Xi responded to these comments from President Macron, specifically with regards to any sort of influence he could have on negotiations between the two countries.
On the matter of Ukraine, China continues to urge for talks to reach a settlement. China is willing to work with France to urge the international community to exercise rational restraint and to avoid worsening the situation, to prevent the situation from spiraling out of control.
He went on to say that China, quote, appeals for the protection of civilians and nuclear weapons must not be used, and nuclear war must be avoided. So, Alex, you and I know, and our viewers know, there's only
now that's completely different than how they summed up China's position, isn't it? There was like China has no interest in ending the war. In fact, their name is completely different.
And this is the fear. This is the fear that the United States ruling class and United States capitalists have. The fear clear where China is offering a better option. China's not perfect, so let's not get it wrong. They're not perfect, but they're offering a better option. And just like with the Ukraine, they're offering peace. And then you hear versus how they described it. It's a hard position to be in, and this is why I don't know if people know, but I think it's just polling now under 50% support for the war here. I think it just recently went under
and it's gonna 50%. Get worse, man.
Yeah, and it's gonna get worse. But
like when has a support for a war dip and then immediately spike back up? Like, nah, bro. Once people wake up to it, it's over. It's over. And we just getting started. JB, do you want to chime in?
No, let's keep going. I'm formulating my opinion.
Yeah, fair enough.
Right. Let's continue. One party that's threatening the use of nuclear weapons, and there's only one party in this war that's targeting innocent civilians. So what do you make of President?
That is a lie. That is a lie. That should get your fucking YouTube channel pulled based on their standards. There's a famous video. I covered it. I could pull it back up where you had this Ukrainian reporter that was asking Ukraine's citizens about Russian armies attacking civilians, and then she was corrected live, and she said, no, it's actually the Ukrainian government that is attacking, insulting citizens. Now, this is war. I'm sure Russia is guilty of war crimes like any army would be in this kind of conflict. But when people say stuff like this, that Ukraine is not guilty of targeting civilians, that is a blatant lie. You guys understand? They have tortured, kidnapped, killed people who they found to be quote unquote Russian sympathizers. People who was in Russian territory that was taken over, and then whenever Ukraine seized territory back, they will punish people who was quote unquote helping the Russian forces out.
This is because state lies, Nick, is okay, and I think we did a stream on this before. State lies are okay, but real truths is the problem.
Yep.
And that's what we're seeing here. It's okay to broadcast state lies. It's okay even on YouTube. I mean, we saw it with COVID. We saw it with a bunch of other stuff. We saw it on Twitter with the censorship through the state. So that's fine. It's when you're trying to tell real truths. That's why we get people like, I think his name is Scott Ritter, gets banned on Twitter all the time. And then I forget this one great account that was, all they did was post like video of like clandestine sort of military shit. That shit is gone. So that's all. That's not good. But state lies are okay. Back to you.
Yeah. So I'm gonna play the blatant lie. Go, JB, you want to chime in?
Yeah, it's ridiculous because a lot of times the news will actually talk about what's really going on, and then they will pull back on what they said from years ago. Like, for instance, there was the articles, and I know you've brought them out multiple times, where they said, oh yeah, the Nazi problem in Ukraine. And then you try to talk about it now, it's like, they're like, what Nazi problem? It's like, the one that you guys just fucking reported on a few years ago. Now you guys are not even paying attention to your own reporting. You guys are saying, "Oh, we didn't report that." No. What Nazis in Ukraine? I didn't see no Nazis in Ukraine. You see no Nazis in Ukraine? You're like, I don't see no Nazis in Ukraine. And I'm like, and we pull up the article, and it's like, you guys reported on it. Are you guys saying that you don't stand by your reporting now? But this is the corporate media. And the corporate media is owned by the corporate dictators. I mean, that's the thing. It's just it's weird.
And this is from antiwar.com. U.S. warships sail near Chinese-controlled reefs in South China Sea. The provocation came as China was holding major exercises around Taiwan in response to the Thai McCarthy meeting. So you have U.S. warships in Chinese-controlled area, but that's just the United States is doing what they do. Whenever China responds, that's them being escalatory, according to the United States media. So I'm gonna continue to just a little bit more. I'm gonna play the part where she just said the blatant lie again.
Their weapons, and there's only one party in this war that's targeting innocent civilians. So what do you make of President Xi's comments here and his quote-unquote commitment, shall we say that, to bring more negotiations?
Surely he's going to have a balanced answer here. Surely.
We've heard these words before from the Chinese leader and from people down below in the Chinese system. They're saying platitudes. Of course, innocent children shouldn't be hurt. Of course, peace is better than war. And of course, nuclear weapons shouldn't be used. It's like...
So he's like, whenever the Chinese people say they want peace in Ukraine, whenever they say we could do not condone the use of nuclear war, he said, "Oh, don't listen to that. They just using platitudes. Don't listen to that part." I know it sounds like they want peace. I know they sound like they are condemning nuclear war, but don't believe them. They just saying stuff that make them sound good. You see how desperate this is? That's legitimately the argument he just used.
Saying that sky is blue and grass is green. This is also part of what people call China's peace plan that was unveiled a year into the invasion. That's basically a laundry bag of very familiar talking points that we've heard from China. At the same time, there is
oh my God, China, this peace plan, they keep talking about territorial sovereignty. The China propaganda respecting the sovereignty of other people and not supporting and arming Nazis. They just snarkle at these ideas. Meanwhile, they have not rebuked it. Nothing he is saying rebuking the Chinese position. But let's continue.
Very familiar talking points that we've heard from China. At the same time, there's nothing to suggest that China is really ready to pressure Russia into sitting down for a sincere negotiation with Ukraine. And I think that President
that
Biden got
mean?
the same wording from Xi Jinping. Before that, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz had also make to say Xi Jinping same platitudes. But at the same time,
this is what they always do. They always show these meetings and they show Putin speaking. They're like, "Oh my God, look at this ominous person speaking." Why are they not showing you what they're saying?
No audio.
They never show. You can watch CNN and MSNBC segments all day. They will never directly quote Putin because they mostly just lying about his positions and what he's saying. And they know just airing his positions is devastating for the West. Why do you think Russia's went over to Africa? Because they be going over there and they make more persuasive arguments than the West. So they don't even want Putin shit to air. They just show footage of him talking instead of airing his arguments. But anyway, I'll go back to the part we was at.
Platitudes, but at the same time, China doesn't show in its behavior that it's ready to use any sort of influence and use any persuasion to make Mr. Putin abandon his current disastrous course.
Yeah, and to that point, China hasn't proven to be an honest broker here. I mean, you had Xi Jinping very publicly make a trip to Moscow, a couple of days he spent there, which was rare for him. And yet he has yet to pick up the phone and call President Zelensky. He said,
"You guys hear what she just said? She said, this is the neutral, quote unquote, neutral TV host. She said China has shown itself not to be an honest broker here. And you want to know her evidence of that? She said China made a trip to meet its closest trading partner. They had a meeting with Putin and Zelensky wasn't invited. Oh my God, how dare you not invite Zelensky to your fucking getaway trip? That's your argument. Go ahead, JB.
You know what? I remember Bianna Golodryga from ABC News a few years back. And from what I see here, it says she was born to a working class family in the Moldavian Soviet Socialist Republic. You see, and her family left the Soviet Union as political refugees, and they settled in Houston, Texas. Says her grandmother joined them in Houston, and her mother is the chief digital administrative officer for Philips, and previously worked as chief information officer for Hess Corporation. Her father, a mechanical engineer, was a consultant for DuPont. So, and plus she has made her rounds through corporate news media. So, of course, she's hired by the corporate media because she believes what the corporate, companies say. So, yeah.
To me, there's not a single thought going up in there. Like, you're just memorizing shit. You know what I mean? I'm not like people who get like all A's in school. They got like they good at memorizing shit. You know what I mean? She was in the honor roll. Like, she was really good in school. You can tell, all A's. You know what I mean? She got that photogenic memory. She looked at her notes one time and she getting 100% all her tests. She was on the honor roll. She went to Yale. She went to elite academia. She made friends. And like, oh my God, she got this great photogenic memory. So say like, here's your talking points. Here, everything you gotta remember about China. And she memorized this shit like it was a quiz, like back in high school. And then she go out and repeat it. I'll play that argument one again. I'm gonna let this guy respond. I'll wrap this segment up. I'll let this guy go one more round. Then I'll wrap it up. But there's not an original thought in her head. And when you look at corporate media, as we said many times before, it is not a meritocracy. This person got here because she is the best at memorizing talking points. You guys understand? There are people who try to get in this position, but they're not as good at memorizing the talking points as she is, as a Mehdi Hassan is. You know what I mean? They're at the top of their class, and that's why they're there, making the big bucks. And everyone in their boutique family is proud of her. But let's continue.
Says that may or may not happen in the future. What do you make of that decision?
I think that President Zelensky has some very unpleasant things to say about China's role in keeping the Russian system afloat. China is becoming the major buyer of Russian oil. It's the major supplier of dual use goods, including chips. We know that Chinese producers are part of Russian military supply chain, including weapons that are used on the battle.
This is just demonstrating the unhinged position that Ukraine has, that everyone must stop doing business with Russia. How is that sustainable, and how is that realistic, especially considering that China and Russia are such close and important trading partners? So Ukraine is like, oh my God, anyone who doesn't cut and destroy their economy and send their people into poverty in order for us to wage war against ethnic Russians, if you do not do that, you are our enemy. How is that a rational position? NATO left. How is that rational? It's not. Let's continue.
But somebody asked the question: what qualifies? Like, not that he has to go to some school, but what? Like, who is this person?
Oh,
he's represented like an expert or something like that.
Remember, CJ, they, in the intro, they said he paid attention. Like, he watched the news. They said he follows the Russia-China relationship. You mean what we do? What does it mean to follow this conflict? You mean what we do all the time? What makes him unique? He does a good job at following it. He follows it in a uniquely professional way. But to answer your question, CJ, I'm having fun. Nothing. They could fight any one of us. They could fight any one of the people we had. And there's nothing in this segment will change. But he's a professional guy because he said what they want, right? You guys are roasting this guy. You guys are roasting this guy.
I'm putting it on the screen.
I'm not gonna tone police anybody. I'm not here to tone police anybody. I'm gonna keep it professional though. I'm not here to tone police anybody. Y'all cracking me up. Let's keep the video playing.
Killing Ukrainian civilians. And at the same time, China is very slow to roll out its support for Ukraine. It's pledged below $1 million in humanitarian assistance, and yet that's not being delivered. So picking up this phone call and listening to all of this makes Xi Jinping vulnerable. If there is a risk that President Zelensky will disclose the content of negotiation, that's probably not the risk that the Chinese leader wants to take. It could be really embarrassing for him.
So, given these meetings now between European officials and President Xi, you have obviously President Macron there, you have Ursula von der Leyen, you had the German Chancellor visit recently, and you also had the Spanish Prime Minister visit China recently. Xi cannot deliver any sort of sincere pledge to be an honest broker and end this war, but he can't deliver something economically. And that is his real intent here, right? It's to sort of try to drive a wedge between the United States and Europe in terms of their relations economically.
China want to drive a wedge between the United States and Europe by advocating for peace in Ukraine, for advocating for peace between Iran and Saudi Arabia. By doing such a thing, they're driving a wedge between Europe and their allies because the people in Europe may agree with China. Macron come back and talk about strategic autonomy, and now that's China's fault. Oh my God, how dare China be more persuasive? The same complaints about Africa. China is colonizing Africa. There's imperialism in Africa because they're more persuasive in Africa, signing with trade deals. And I wanted to cut them off like the United States want them to. Last part of the video, and then we can move on. CJ, I'll pass to you if you have any story. We can the main one here soon. I know JB, you have a story. I can pass to you here too as well. But last part, and then we move on.
With China, he's said that he would like to sign a cooperation agreement over aerospace, civil nuclear energy, agriculture, supply chains. That's just for France. Do you see this as an effective strategy on Xi's part?
By the way, and this is the question. Sorry, I keep interrupting. That's my bad. But why are they asking about Xi's strategy?
Yeah.
You are American media, aren't you? Why aren't you grilling Biden about their strategy? You guys see the cowardice of Western chauvinists and journalists who make it? All they do is focus on criticizing other countries, talking about their strategy. Meanwhile, Biden completely destroyed the United States dollar. They're standing among the world. They lost the support of many of their close allies and friends. But there's no close analysis of strategy for CNN regarding Biden. But this is literally the last part of playing. I'll move on.
Is pulping and sensing these divisions in the transatlantic camp. I think that the Inflation Reduction Act and the US push for European economies to decouple from China is creating rifts and discussions within EU. Because if we take France, it was not as dependent on Russia for its energy as Germany, but it still was. And now this Russian pillar of German economic prosperity and European economic prosperity is gone because of sanctions. And then China is a major market for Germany, France, Spain, and other countries. And here Xi Jinping senses a weakness that these leaders need to go to China and need to secure their position in the Chinese market. And they're also in competition. Olaf Scholz went there alone, despite Macron's suggestions to go together. So this competition inside Europe and the rifts in the transatlantic camp is something that Xi is happy to exploit. And if you need to provide diplomatic cover for this, so you go to the leader of the most powerful authoritarian country in the world, you don't do that for petty business of Alstom and other French companies. You do that for the cause of peace in Ukraine. And that's
this guy was completely trained by an American.
Yeah.
He was completely trained by an American. And it's almost like he was put out there before he was ready, because he is literally enunciating the words too much. He's exaggerating. He's like going like this when he's talking, because that's English is not his native language, but he's still, you know what I mean? He's remembering the talking points and he's trying to say it correctly. But this is clearly because he's trying to use adjectives that only an American, a person who's born in America, will kind of use these kind of phrases politically. He's trying to use those phrases. Like it's so inauthentic to me in practice, and clearly somebody is trying to train this guy.
Yeah, well said. And you guys want to you want to hear what he just said? I'm gonna sum it up.
Play that again. Or if you want to play it again,
he asked him about why China is a bad faith actor in peace deals in Ukraine. You want to know what he said? China is expanding their economy. They're doing trade deals with Germany and France. How dare they pursue the expansion of their state under the guise of pursuing peace in Ukraine? And I'm asking you guys, as Americans, as people who are supposed to be afraid of China, what part of that offends you? What part of China wanting to grow their economy and increase the quality of life for their people, what part of that offends you? That is his argument. He's like, oh my God, look at China doing planning, doing diplomatic meetings. Look at China over there thinking he's the shit. Then you got some new Jordans on. You think the shit. They just haters. They do these segments. They just be hating. Look at China over there thinking that meet with.
Go ahead, JB.
Go ahead, JB.
In regards to peace between Ukraine and Russia, she came in just like Thanos and said, "Fine, I'll do it myself." Because guess what? Naftali Bennett was the one who said that the West basically interfered and said, "Oh no, we can't have peace." Guess what?
Yes.
Ex-Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett blamed West for thwarting possibility of peace between Russia and Ukraine. So guess what? This is why she was like, okay, I do not want my people to die, so I'm going to go in and I'm going to broker peace because I don't want to die. And so guess what? That's what they're doing. And guess what? Now they're going after him for wanting peace. Oh, perish the thought that someone from another country that wants peace, wants you to not die. That's crazy, right?
This headline is, and I got two quick receipts just on that point, and now pass to you, CJ. Look, Saudi delegation arrives in Yemen for talk with Houthis on ending the war. The so-called China peace talks. And as JB said, you had the CIA director who flew all the way to Saudi Arabia to express his displeasure about the recent peace progress. The CIA, the United States, and the West is like, how dare China help peace occur? How dare peace occur? That is their argument.
Yeah.
Inspiring peace around the world, and they don't want you to do that. This is literally, like I said earlier, This is the other major example in the world that they don't want other countries to see. They only want to see capitalism as a way. Go ahead, JB. You were going to say something.
But okay, this is crazy because let's take gangs for example. Somebody who wants to broker peace between the Crips and the Bloods, you're going to get mad at that guy? Wait, let's make this make sense. You're getting mad at the person that's trying to make sure that we all don't die from a nuclear holocaust? I want you guys to really sit with this. You're getting pissed off at the guy that wants to make sure that you don't die? Man, that makes sense. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't. It's psychotic. And CJ, Nick, I don't know why you guys aren't screaming right now because my voice is going up a couple octaves over this. I'm just like, how do you guys hold it together? Because I can't.